They laughed when she walked into school, wearing boots 3 sizes too big, but no one laughed when 3 German shepherds appeared at the gates the next morning, growling, staring straight at the boys who hurt her. And when one of them got too close to her again, what those dogs did shocked the entire town and changed everything. Summer had always been quiet in the small town of Chestnut Grove. Elderly couples sat on porches, sipping iced tea. Children played baseball in the park. And the loudest noise was usually a distant lawnmower or the hum of bees. But that calm shattered the day little Lily Walker arrived. She was only 9 years old, but her eyes held something much older, like she'd seen things a child never should. She wore faded jeans, a shirt 2 years out of fashion, and carried one bag that looked like it had survived a dozen moves. Her hair was tangled from wind and bus windows, and she clutched a torn notebook, like it was the only thing keeping her afloat. Waiting for her at the bus stop was her aunt, Grace Callahan, a strong, no-nonsense woman in her late 50s, with deep laugh lines and silver strands running through her auburn hair. Grace hadn't seen Lily since she was 3. A court order, a desperate phone call, and a few papers later. And suddenly, Grace had a child in her home again. But Lily didn't speak much. She didn't smile either. Grace tried her best. She baked cookies, set up a guest room with yellow curtains and stuffed animals, and even pulled out her late husband's old guitar to strum a tune or two. But Lily just watched, silent. The only time something flickered behind those eyes was when Max and Ruby bounded into the room, her 2 retired German shepherds, once trained for search and rescue. Max, older and broader, had a slow, patient energy, while Ruby was still spry, with sharp ears that twitched at every creak in the house. To Grace's surprise, Lily warmed to them almost instantly. She'd sit on the porch for hours, leaning against Max's thick fur, drawing in her notebook as Ruby chased butterflies in the yard. But things changed when school started. Chestnut Grove Elementary was the kind of place where everyone knew each other's names. And everyone noticed the new girl. Her hand-me-down clothes, awkward silence, and the way she flinched when anyone raised their voice made her an easy target, especially for the older boys, Cody, Brandon, and Tyler. The Yard Kings, as they called themselves, ran the 5th grade playground like a mini mob. They were the kind of boys who laughed too loud, picked fights with weaker kids, and knew exactly how far to push before a teacher stepped in. And Lily? She was their perfect prey. It started small. A shove in the hallway, a pencil snapped in half, a sandwich tossed in the trash. But Lily never told. Not a word to Grace, not a whisper to a teacher. She just got quieter. But what no one knew was that every night Lily would sit in her room, whispering to Max and Ruby. "I don't want to go back," she'd say, her voice cracking like dry leaves. "I just want to disappear." And Max, who once rescued earthquake victims under collapsed buildings, would nuzzle her hand gently, as if to say, "Not on my watch, kid." Ruby would curl up at her feet, growling low, her eyes staring out the window like she was waiting for someone to cross a line. And one day, someone did. By Thursday morning, things had taken a turn for the worse. Lily showed up to school with a ripped backpack and a bruise on her wrist. No one saw it happen, but everyone, especially the lunch ladies and the janitor, had their suspicions. Cody, Brandon, and Tyler never looked guilty, but they smirked a little too much, walked with their shoulders a little too puffed. Grace had noticed something was off the night before. Lily hadn't touched her mac and cheese, her favorite. Instead, she fed half of it to Ruby and the other half to Max, mumbling, "They don't let me sit down anymore, not even at lunch." That was all she said. Grace didn't want to push. She knew trauma when she saw it. Her late husband had worked with veterans, and she'd volunteered at the clinic for years. She also knew that with kids like Lily, sometimes silence was protection. But something about the way Lily clung to the dogs that night made her stomach turn. The next morning, without saying a word, Lily left the house with Max and Ruby trailing her. Grace, still in her robe and slippers, yelled from the porch, "Lily, you can't take the dogs to school." Lily didn't stop. She kept walking through the quiet streets, past the bakery where the smell of cinnamon rolls drifted out, and down the cracked sidewalk leading to Chestnut Grove Elementary. When she reached the schoolyard, the morning bell had just rung. Kids bustled around, laughing, dropping books, chasing each other toward the front doors. No one noticed the girl in the faded jeans and oversized shirt until she reached the gate, and no one missed. The two massive German shepherds standing at her side. Max sat on her left, Ruby on her right, silent, watchful. The schoolyard went still. Cody, Brandon, and Tyler were the first to break the silence. From across the basketball court, they pointed, nudged each other, and swaggered forward. "Look who brought her doggies to school," Cody jeered.
Gonna sick 'em on us, freak.
Lily didn't answer. Max stood up slowly. Ruby growled. "Whoa, what's their problem?" Brandon asked, backing up half a step. Tyler, always the smallest of the three, didn't laugh this time. "Dude, those dogs aren't normal." From behind a window in the front office, the school secretary fumbled for the intercom button. Principal Harris, a man in his late 60s, with a stiff back and a soft heart, appeared on the lawn a minute later. "Lily Walker," he called, adjusting his glasses. "You can't bring animals on campus." Lily turned. Her eyes were wide, trembling. She pointed not at the principal, but at the boys behind her. Principal Harris followed her gaze, then took a few cautious steps toward her. He could feel the tension in the air. Max's eyes were locked on Cody, who suddenly looked a lot smaller than usual. "You boys," Harris said slowly. "Inside now." "But we didn't do anything," Cody protested. "I said now." As they backed away, Ruby kept her eyes trained on them until they disappeared into the building. That afternoon, Grace received a phone call from the school. "Mrs. Callahan," Harris said with a sigh, "we need to talk. Lily's dogs showed up this morning. And well, I've never seen a group of boys look so shaken in my life." Grace was quiet for a moment. Then she said softly, "Maybe it's about time someone scared them." Lily sat in the school office, her hands tucked between Max's front legs. Ruby lay across her feet like a warm blanket. Principal Harris didn't know what to make of it all. He had seen service dogs before, but these two were something else. They hadn't barked, lunged, or broken a rule, but they had exuded a quiet power that left even the janitor too stunned to speak. Grace arrived 20 minutes later, slightly out of breath, worry painted across her face. "She didn't mean any harm," Grace said quickly, stroking Lily's hair. Well, Max and Ruby make her feel safe." Principal Harris leaned forward, choosing his words carefully. "I've been told Lily hasn't said much since she arrived, that she spends recess alone. But this morning, well, her silence spoke volumes." Grace nodded, her voice tight. "She's been through something. I don't know all the details. Her mother, my sister, never told me everything. But I do know that wherever she came from, she didn't feel safe." Harris looked at the dogs. "These two, are they trained?" "Retired search and rescue," Grace replied. "My husband was a firefighter. Max pulled a child out of a collapsed home during a gas explosion. Ruby's younger, more instinctive, but sharp as a tack." The principal rubbed his chin. "I can't allow animals on campus during school hours, but maybe, just maybe, we can work something out." That night, Grace didn't force Lily to talk. Instead, she baked fresh rolls, poured them each some soup, and let Max and Ruby curl up in the kitchen. After dinner, Lily stood quietly at the back door, watching the moon rise. Grace joined her, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "They weren't just being mean today, were they?" Lily hesitated, then whispered, "They took my sketchbook last week, tore it up." Grace's heart broke a little. "And yesterday?" she asked softly. Lily touched her wrist, where the bruise had bloomed. "Cody grabbed me, said I was nothing." Max, who had been lying nearby, rose slowly and walked over. He pressed his head into Lily's waist and let out a low, steady growl. "Max doesn't think you're nothing," Grace whispered. Lily's eyes filled with tears, but for the first time, they didn't fall. Word spread fast. By the following Monday, every parent at Chestnut Grove Elementary had heard some version of the story. A shy new girl with two intimidating German shepherds, and a pack of bullies who suddenly went quiet. Some parents were worried. Others were impressed. Cody's mother even called the school, demanding an investigation. "My son is traumatized," she screeched. "That girl's dogs need to be banned." but Principal Harris stood firm. The dogs didn't attack anyone. They didn't even growl until your son approached uninvited. If anything, Lily's the one who deserves protection. Meanwhile, Grace was forming her own plan. At dinner, she laid out a laminated sheet of paper and a yellow folder. "What's that?" Lily asked, finally breaking her silence mid-meal. "It's a permission form," Grace said, smiling, "for therapy dogs to visit the school. I talked to the board, since Max and Ruby are retired rescue dogs. And if you're okay with it, we can register them as your support animals." Lily blinked. "So they can come to school if we follow all the rules and if we go through training?" For the first time since she arrived, Lily smiled, a real one, toothy and uneven. They began training the very next day. Grace pulled out old command books, brushed up on hand signals, and even reached out to a local dog trainer for a quick refresher. Max was steady like a wise old soldier. Ruby needed a bit more polish, but her love for Lily made her focus like never before. But not everyone was thrilled. Brandon and Tyler started whispering again. Cody glared at Lily in the lunch line. They'd been humiliated. And boys like them didn't let that go easily. They started planning something of their own. It was a rainy Wednesday when things came to a head. Lily had been granted permission to bring Max to class 2 days a week. On a trial basis, Ruby stayed home for now, but she wasn't far from the gate most mornings, watching her girl with a protector's intensity. Cody, Brandon, and Tyler waited for the perfect moment. As school let out and the rain began to fall, Lily packed up her things and headed for the back path home, a shortcut through the woods most kids avoided. It was quieter there, less crowded. What she didn't know was that the boys were waiting. Cody jumped out first, shoving her from behind. Lily stumbled, her backpack hitting the mud. Max growled instantly, stepping between her and the boys. Tyler circled behind. "Let's see how brave your mutt is now." Cody raised a stick, thick, sharp at one end. He swung. Max lunged. What happened next would be talked about in town for years. Max didn't bite. He didn't tear into Cody's arm, though he could have. Instead, he knocked the stick from Cody's hand with his paw and stood over it, teeth bared, eyes locked. Ruby had arrived too. None of them saw her coming. She slipped in from the trees like a shadow and snarled so loudly that Brandon tripped backward into the mud. Tyler ran. Cody froze, too scared to move, too proud to cry. Lily picked up her bag and stood behind Max, voice trembling. "Don't follow me again!" She didn't run. She walked, one hand on Max's back, the other resting lightly on Ruby's shoulder. And this time, she didn't feel small. The story got out by morning. One of the boys had blabbed to a classmate, who told a teacher's daughter, who told everyone. "Max saved her," kids whispered in the hallway. "Ruby chased them into the woods." Even the janitor gave Lily a respectful nod as she passed. Principal Harris called Grace. "This might be unusual," he said, "but Lily has become, well, something of a symbol here. Some kids are walking her to class now." The teasing stopped. "I've even had a few parents asking if their children can interact with Max." Grace chuckled. "Let me guess, the same parents who complained." Exactly. That afternoon, Lily found a folded piece of paper in her desk. "I'm sorry, you're braver than us and Tyler." She stared at it for a long time before slipping it into her notebook. 2 weeks later, the skies darkened over Chestnut Grove. A powerful summer storm rolled in, toppling trees and downing power lines. The school had to be evacuated early, and parents scrambled to pick up their children. But Lily was missing. One of the teachers swore they saw her heading toward the gym to retrieve her sketchbook. No one had seen her since. Grace arrived in minutes, her face pale with fear. She wouldn't just wander off. Ruby was already whining near the exit. Max stood alert, nose in the air. "We're wasting time," Grace said. "Let the dogs find her." No one argued. Within minutes, Max caught her scent. He darted toward the old service tunnel beneath the gym, a place no one thought to check. They found her huddled near a collapsed stairwell, clutching her sketchbook, whispering to herself, "Please don't leave me." Max nudged her. Ruby licked her cheek. Grace arrived, breathless, crying, wrapping her arms around her niece. "You're safe," she sobbed. "You're safe, baby." Lily didn't speak for 2 days after the storm. Then during breakfast, she looked up and asked, "Can I go to the dog park today?" Grace nearly dropped her mug. From that day on, things began to change rapidly. Lily started sitting with other kids at lunch. She joined the art club. She even helped present a report on German Shepherds in class, Max sitting calmly at her side the whole time. At the end, she said loudly, "They're not just pets, they're family, and family doesn't leave." Cody and his crew never bothered her again. But something unexpected happened. Cody stayed after class one day, waited until the room emptied, and walked over. He mumbled, "I'm not good at this, but you didn't tell on us." "You could have," Lily shrugged. "Didn't need to." He looked down. "That dog, he looked right through me." "That's Max," Lily said. "He sees everything." Cody gave a sheepish nod and walked away. It wasn't an apology, but it was something. Autumn arrived, and with it came Lily's 10th birthday. Grace threw a small party, balloons, chocolate cake, and a gift wrapped in red paper. Inside was a leather collar, engraved with the name Ruby Walker, Protector. Lily hugged her aunt, tears in her eyes. "She's my family now too?" Grace smiled. "She always was." At the year-end school assembly, Principal Harris invited Lily to the stage. "She reminded us," he said, "that sometimes courage comes from the quietest voices." Lily stood tall, Max and Ruby at her sides, and spoke clearly into the microphone. "Thought I was alone, but I had them, and they gave me the strength to be me again." The auditorium roared with applause. Lily never forgot what it felt like, to be small, scared, and silent. But with Max and Ruby, she found strength. With Grace, she found love. And in a town that once felt distant, she found a place to belong. Every morning she walked to school, between her 2 loyal companions, no longer hiding, no longer afraid. Because when life tried to break her, she had fangs at her back and love in her corner. And that made all the difference.